So, good morning, class. Once again, welcome to the week 3 for second lectures for the chapter 2, the title Android User Input Variables and Operations. Previously, we discussed about the chapter 1 about the Android application in terms of its environment and of course in terms of the different mobile apps in terms of Android Studio as the IDE or the platform that we're going to use. So now it's a continuation of the IDE in terms of having the Android apps. So this one is actually the continuation of the chapters that includes the user input variables and operations. Okay, let I share my slides. So these are the objectives. Part of these objectives, the first objective is we need to learn here about the Android as a theme. So when you say theme, so there are different themes. So you can learn here in different process. So what particular apps that the Android capable to use. So later on, we're going to discuss those things. And the second objective is that we could add a theme to Android manifest files. So using the .xml format. So we can modify that as we go through with the objectives. And also here you can learn about the adding text based on the table or the string table. So technically we could use editable text, labels, buttons, and so on. So in developing the UI or user interface, those controls are in need in order for us to create a program, okay, using Java. So part of the objectives, there's a role of different text fields that we could use in order to come up with the property. So that's actually called a hint property. So displaying hint property just like part of this is a part of objective that's like giving you a watermark. That's the hint property. So I will discuss that later on in detail. And also here second to last bullet, we have to develop the user interface using spinner control. So in terms of spinner control, there are different controls, but we start for the spinner, and the prompt message in terms of spinner control are tackled here. Okay, so those are the objectives. Then as continued objectives, we need to declare a variable based on the whole data. So declaring variable in a program, okay, so that we could call that as the method declared. So we need to code using get text as part of the method, and we need to understand the different operations or the mathematical operations that actually in need in any programming language, not only in Java, but the syntax still are intact. Okay, we also learn here about converting numeric data, for example, into text to numbers. So there's a specific format that we're going to use. So as part of objectives, we could learn those format. Okay, and also other type of the method that need to consider is that a set text method. So later we go through with the set text method, and the last part will be the running a complete app using an emulator. So that's the objectives of this chapter. Then now we proceed with Android themes. So in Android themes, this actually the user engaging the user by requesting input customizes the user experience each time the application is executed. So technically those are the styles in the entire application. So every application or every activity, there's a theme to consider. So it's up to the user what particular theme that he or she need to select in order for you to execute the applications. That's how the Android themes works. And by definition, this actually the Android mechanism for applying consistency in terms of the style of the different activity. So meaning not only one activity, more than one activities. Okay, so considering for a fact that you selected the themes, okay, and then the default for the Android themes that we're going to use is the Nexus 5. So there's different default depend on the version. Okay, so the version is still depend on the Android Studio that you already installed or updates. So in my case, the default is Nexus 5. So the title displaying the app name, so with background of white color, so depending on the background, but here by default it's white background. when it's running or when it's started. Okay, so this actually it look like. So here in Nexus 5, so you could see the availability or the avail activity underscore main .xml file. So by default, this you could see in emulator. It look like this one. So in figure 3-3, this is actually a holographic theme. So you could see the light color here with the theme that holo that light. So that's the default. Then in figure 3-4, there's a material theme that with no action bar. So that's a different thing. Here, there's a action bar here without action bar. But you can change it to theme that material, that dialogue, that no action bar. So since that's a theme, so that's a default. Okay. So while in figure 3-5, that's a plain black theme. So that's the theme that look like. But again, it depends on the version that you currently installed or updates. Okay, this is an example of Nexus 5. Just want to clarify. Okay. So next. So here we have the figure 3-6, the configuration of the concert ticket project. So I made a concert tickets project. So the application name is the concert ticket. So as you can see, that's the application name with a text box. And then the domain name is actually a default for the Android. So still you can modify that. It's up to you as long as the application name is written. Okay. So we have the project location. So by default, there's Android Studio that is actually created in a folder. So that's the project locations created. So you can see if you create a new project, automatically it will default you with the name of the project, then followed by the next button. So in my case, it's actually saved with the drive D workspace USB drive. So then of course followed by the application name, which is concert tickets. Once I finish, okay, but right now it's not written here. Okay, so next. So just a continuation on previewing a theme. There's here the activity main underscore main.xml files display in design tab. So as you can see here, there's a design tab and the hello world. So by default, every time you open, okay, the Android Studio or the new activity layout, there's a hello world. Okay, that's a default, but you can modify that if you want. Okay, but still, that's a default text view widget. So if you want to delete, then you may. So in this case, it's deleted. Okay, so that's how the default theme works. Okay, and as you can see here, actually I explained that during the past and the last week. I discussed that in laboratory, a demonstration, right? So a demonstration or demo in getting know about Android Studio, which is updated. Okay, so just leave it there since I discussed that already in love. So let's proceed. So also here, okay, so in figure 3-8, this is a theme that you need to select if you want to customize it. So by default, there's a black color, or if you want to make it light or dark. Actually, that's the previewing theme in Android Studio last week that I demonstrate. You could customize the appearance using settings. I hope you remember that. Okay, so you could customize all those things in settings in the latest version. that I used last week. Okay. So then I do believe that your Android Studio is updated well. Okay. Then for those Android Studio that's not updated, that will be fine. Okay, as long as I have here in a presentation with also not updated, then during demonstration there's an updated, so that you will see the difference between the two in order for you to interact the difference. And also for those who are in a mode of application that's not compatible with their machines, okay, so they using 32-bit, so that will be fine. So that's a lower version. Yes, of course, you could install a lower version, not an update for 32 bits, because right now there's a 64 bits. Okay, so at least here, considering a fact that 32 bits has these themes. Okay, so let's go to the next. So here is the theme in terms of the layout. So you can see here in figure 3-9 the new theme that applied. Okay, so there's a main activity, so you can see the widgets. Okay, as I told you, the widgets, those are the controls that you can use, okay, as part of your UI. Those are actually under the widgets and layout, but all of those are connected with the palettes. Okay, then we also have here the title. So since that theme has no title, so the default name is no title. Okay, so you can customize that. Okay, then here in updating the theme, so you can update that if you want, just to type the name of the parent. So example, parent is equal to base that theme that app compat or the compatible. So still, if you want to modify, okay, but if you want to use that, that will be okay. Okay, just want to clarify those things. There's a lot of styles in XML that you can, okay, insert in a parent mode. Okay, actually it's under styles.xml. So you can see here the app theme. So the parent is base.theme.app compact. So I just copied that. So the description is black background, gray title bar, and so on. So there's a lot of themes if you want to again customize. But in the latest version, you don't have to worry because there's a lot of themes that you need to select. Then automatically it will show whether you don't have resources to edit. Okay, since this is a discussion, so you will know how does it works based on the latest from the previous version. Okay, at least you see the difference in terms of the styles. And then next, in simplifying user input, so we have what we call a soft keyboard. So when you say soft keyboard, those are on-screen keyboard. So just like in a desktop, if your keyboard is not functioning well physically, okay, so what we're going to do is we create on-screen keyboard in our desktop or laptop. But here in Android Studio, we can use as on-screen keyboard as part of the motions or gestures in terms of the forms, using 2 fingers to pan, rotate, or zoom. So you could interact based on the UI. So mostly those are the UI in terms of touching those screens and or tapping those different pans in terms of rotation or zooming in or out. Okay, and in simplifying user input, there's also a challenge that the user experience, since you're a beginner to using those things, you could challenge a lot in terms of modifying a different default, okay, or different process. Then you could also use a different fonts, okay. So if your Android Studio doesn't have a font that you really want, okay, you can simply, okay, um you can simply download or upload a different styles of font. But in a later version, there's a lot of fonts that's already included in in PowerPoint something version 4.1 or 4.1.0.2. So there's a legit fonts that it's legible. So meaning you could see that in your eye. So once you're up, once you already publish that, still the same process, okay. And then to maximize the user experience, still, if you have your example, your Android Studio is the latest version, and then you have your font or Android Studio that is high in a font, so meaning there's a customized font, still it will run once you publish. But if it doesn't, if your program does not yet publish, so technically within the APK process, so meaning you could edit, still again you could edit. Unlike if you publish that, automatically whatever font style are intact, still you can see that in a different Android Studio versions. Much better if you higher version simply because you could see the interactions, okay. Then here we have the Android in terms of text fields. So you can see here there's a text field, so you could use plain text, person name, password. Those are text fields, or the types that you can use as part of the control, okay. So most common type of mobile input are already here, okay. So all you have to do is to drag and drop those things, but of course you need to code those given widgets based on the palettes, okay. Then next, so in adding a text field, you could use the ID property in the properties pane in terms of the prefix. So when you say prefix, those are the example text, txt, example button, that will be btn. So make sure that adding a different inputs or a different controls, make sure there's a prefix associated with that, so that we will know that you use text or you use button, okay. So with my case, instead of text 1, so I use a descriptive names like text tickets. Clear? And using a string table, so of course when you say string, it's a series of characters, so meaning more than 2 character, so associated with alphanumeric, okay, which include trailing spaces because that's a part of the string, okay. Then when say localization, those are the string table that you can change based on the text users. So preferably, if example your language is Java or Kotlin, that will be fine as long as you selected the localizations. That's part of the string table. So by definition, those are what we have, okay. And then so simplifying the user input as continued. So as you can see here in figure 3-12, so there's string table text here. So from here, the strings x.xml. So adding the string, okay, you could add a key, which is the text title for the part of your text box. Adding the default value is default value that you could see in your text field. Okay. So here is the properties in figure 3-13. The properties of strings added to the translations editor. So with that case, the settings still you can modify, okay, since this is actually part of the attributes, okay. And then here is your key, the name of your particular controls, okay, and this actually the default value which stated in table 3-2, which is string table text, okay. So those are actually just a simplified process, okay, enable for you to interact with the users or users input. So normally the text box, buttons, the labels, so those are the important things in terms of generating the UI. Otherwise you cannot have an input, okay. So if you already select or you selected a text followed by the button and so on, so simple as that, okay. So now let's proceed with 15. Slide 15 as a continuation. So adding string array, by definition, a string array defines a string resource. So meaning all of the associated connections in declaring string are located with string.xml. So moving backward, so this one what I'm talking about, string.xml. So as you can see here, this one, string.xml, okay. So that's actually part of the values that you are created. So that's it. And an item defines an individual entry, so meaning those are the XML code. So again, the Android Studio editor, we can modify, you could edit, or you could suggest, or there's a suggestions part of the Intellisense that they could complete the different statement. Normally, the part of the adding string here is that there's an Intellisense. So I hope you know that Intellisense that I'm talking about, because I discussed that in a previous meeting. So just to again recall, when you say the Intellisense, those are the executing process based on the methods. So once you make a that, there's a suggested part of the process that you are in. So meaning that you're into, there's a selections or selected methods that are mostly compatible with the one that you already input. Okay, that's how it works. Okay, and then this one, that's what I'm talking about. So there's an auto completion suggestion. So that's what we call an Intellisense, the part of suggestions in string.xml. So here, there's you can see the resources. So from the top, there's a string.xml. That's actually the XML format. So if you're going to open that, these are the resources. The line numbers is 1, 2, 3, 1 to 12. So that's the line numbers. In any program, there's a line numbers. Okay, so that you will know what particular errors that you need to track or that you need to debug or trace based on your codes. Okay, then here we have the string. So string name is hello world. So this actually the hello world, the action settings, text title. So just to forward, so the hello action text title here is that. So here, okay, this is the keys. So see that? So text title. So remember? So the text title is the key. Hello world, that's the key. So that's how implemented. Okay? And so on. And then the hello world, okay, this is the name that the strings are already, or it's included, and so on. So still, it's editable. Actually, you can edit that by codes, or you can still edit that by attributes or by methods. So depend on you. So what will be the comfortable one? But on my case, if you are a beginner, I strongly advise that you need to codes, just like what I did here. Okay, rather than drag and drop, because drag and drop anyone could know. Okay, anyone could know, and they could explore using drag and drop buttons. But here in my lectures, so I want you to know how does the controls process. Basically, as a beginner, you should know how to create a controls based on the resources. For example, the string. Okay, you could also use an integer. Okay, so depending on the data type. Then here, there's a suggested part, the string, style, and so on. So if you type on line 11, then there's an auto suggestion, or there's an autocomplete suggestion code. You could simply tab. So when you say tab, automatically, all you have to do is to insert only. Take note, you can insert only the label between the line. Why? Simply because they already included in your layout. So all you have to do is to select. Okay, that's what the string name created. Okay, so that's how it works. There's an Intellisense, so no, you don't have to worry. So there's a suggested. Then, clear? Okay, now, moving forward. So, just a continuation. So, we have 3-14, now 3-15. So, the string array, or the XML code, name, text group. When I say text group, those are the group of texts, okay, that is added, okay, in a closing statement. So, as you can see here, string, there's an opening for the string name. Okay, so here in resources, you can see that, right? Resources, there's the opening resources, then the closing resources. So here, there's an opening string array. So technically, there's a closing string array. But take note, don't close if you still have to insert. So what I did with that case, I rather enter the closing tags right after the content. Okay, so here, this is the opening statement of the string. Then still you can edit the content. Then by default, the text group is the name of the string array. Okay, so this is how it works. Okay, so begin and end. Okay, clear? So that's the 3-15 as continued. So here in text group string array, as you can see here, that's a time that you will create a different list. You know that an array, when you say array, there's a collection or related list, right? So meaning the set, okay, the set of different items. So if you already have your text group, that's the time that you need to insert a different item. Example, item 1, first item, second item, third item. With my case, I use, or the label for the text is life revealed, spatial sense, zigzag. So still it's editable as long as you declare per item. Because it's a group, meaning when you say it's a group, so there's a collection of related items. Take note, if you're going to use a text group, make sure that it's related within the group. okay, within the group. So, for example, courses, text course or text courses. So, use a text as a course. So, technically, there's a lot of items that you need to select. There's a different selection. There are different courses. So, that's related. So, don't include the string array which is not related with another items. Okay? That's a rule for creating a string array as a group. Clear now? Okay? So now, we proceed with slide 19. The text resource that are the text resource, the text title. So that's actually in figure 3-17. As you can see here, the string.xml file is selected with the ticket vault as displayed. Okay, so still this is our activity underscore main.xml tab. Then the plain text view, so simply as text plain view. Then the text size in the properties, you can set what size of the text that you need to interact with. Okay, so still depending on your layout. Again, that's part of your creativity as long as you know how to interact or how to edit a particular text. But with this example, with this figure, the text in line with the plain text view is text bold, or rather ticket bold as text. Okay, that's for slide 19. Then moving forward, we have here in figure 3-18 a number text field. So take note. Okay, so if you use a plain text a while ago, as simple as text, here a number. So meaning if it's number, so you have to include that later on in our codes, the number as an integer value. So in a text field, there's a lot of things that you need to drag, but still you have to customize. Okay, but in other version, in a text plain text, they could modify that in a number, but of course much better if you know the basic one. Okay, so that you're not confusing about the different methods. But technically, this is the basic text field that you can see in any, take note, in any version of Android Studio. So there's a plain text, password, email, and so on. The next, after that part of figure 3-18, which is the string array. So now, moving forward, we have hint property. So take note, hint property, just like in HTML5, if you are familiar with HTML, you actually use the mass text in terms of the text field. Okay, so here in Android Studio, we could use as hint as a short description of a visible of the text. So meaning, that's what they call a watermark, meaning by default it's included, but once you type, automatically it will not show anymore. That's actually a pattern. Okay, pattern to guide you what particular fields or text that you need to input. That's as simple as that. Okay, in some cases, just like Visual Studio, they use a tooltip. Okay, or they can use also a watermark. So depending on the programmer. Okay, so that's how it works in terms of watermark. So in any version, there's a hint. Okay, take note the word hint. Okay, then after the hint, now we go through the text as text ticket. So as showed here in figure 3-20, resources dialog box for hint property. So this one the hint. Okay, so there's ellipsis. When you say ellipsis, this actually the dot 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 dot. So meaning there's next the period or dot dot dot. So if you see the that portion that's the ellipsis, then simply click. Then you can see your resources. Actually, you can still edit that if you want. Okay, clear. So that's the figure 3-20. Then going forward, so the watermark now is added. So in figure 3-21, hint added to the text field control. So as you can see here, there's the ticket value as our text, and this the number of tickets as our hint, the watermark. Okay. So this one, don't worry, you don't need to include add string / text ticket. It's automatically created. So never mind for this because it's automatically created. Okay. All you have to do is to type the word, the number of tickets. Okay, because it's already included in Android Studio. Okay. So again, don't delete this part. Okay, because it's automatically generated. Okay, but if you want to edit, go to the previews, then edit. Then if you edit that, still it will edit the hint automatically. Okay, because you can see that in the source code. So what else? Edit text. Okay, clear? So now we proceed with slide 24. So using the Android spinner control. So when you say spinner control, those are a drop-down list. So meaning you could select based on the different items. So meaning if you select the item 1, item 2, okay, or if you want to select a fixed list. Okay, fixed list, for example, item 1 to 5, that's a fixed list. Okay, then you could select once for the drop-down list. So single item. That's what we call a spinner control. So the spinner control displays a list that's called an items, as I said, no, in a different windows or a pop-up windows that you can show based on the buttons or based on the controls that the Android Studio has. Okay, then a prompt, when you say prompt, this actually viewing instruction based on the top of the spinner control. So usually you could see that in string.xml and the name is prompt. Okay, so prompt is the name of that particular control. So take note for the definition, because by next week you will have your quiz for chapter 1 and including this chapter 2. Okay, 1 and 2. Just want to remind you. Okay, then the spinner property called an entry. So take note, the properties, those are the entries that connect with the array and to display the application. So actually that's more on definitions. So moving forward, the samples. So this what the prompt, the select group, and this one is the items. So we have 3 items. So automatically this display group. So when you say display group, automatically they use a spinner control. So that's actually stated in figure 3-22. Then in figure 3-23, the spinner mode property displays based on the option of the spinner control, which is the name text group. So we already named that as a text group. So all you have to do is to modify that based on the layout. Okay, so here you could see the spinner mode property, the ID, and this one is the selection in terms of the list. Okay, You could use a dialogue mode or a drop-down mode, still depending on your, as a developer or as a designer, since you're designing it, okay? So you have to set, okay, in order for you to check the applications, okay, as we go through with the emulator. So assuming the dialog box are, or the dialog box is selected, okay, that's how a user input show. Then as continued, okay, in figure 3-24, spinner control prompts and entries properties. So here is the properties. So example, so just I read the 3-24. The prompt property connects to the resource name string at string prompt. So take note, automatically it will generate with your code. So you don't need to edit those things that at string slash or / prompt. The entries property connects to the resource of a string array. So that's a text group. The actual group are displayed the spinner when the app is executed by emulator. So automatically, once executed with emulator, they will compile. They will compile. So meaning once it compiled, automatically it will generate the APK. Okay. So here, the item, a spinner. So you can see here the entries and the properties. Okay, so all of those are the properties. Okay, that's how the slide 26 shows. Then now we proceed with the adding the button, the text view, and image view controls. So in this figure 3-25, the button control name BTN as our prefix. Remember, I told you prefix BTN as a button cost, and the string, for the name of the string is find the cost. Okay, so as you can see here, we have also a size is 34 SP. So you can see here the find the cost. It's the button control. That's actually added. So once you click a button, then all you have to do is to set the size and the property. So simple as that. Okay, since we already did with the ticket value, step by step, we did that. We did the second part. We did the group, and now the button. So do you follow? So that's how it works. Okay, and then after that, in figure 3-26, the text result, text view control is added. So technically with the text property blank. So meaning blank item. Okay, so this is how the text size property. So as you can see here, this is a component tree. By the way, when you say component tree, these structures. When you say component tree, these are the structures, the structure of your layout. You can see here your layout. Okay, the added one is the text result. Okay, clear? So adding the text result, then right after that, okay, we have figure 3-27, adding an image view control. So meaning you can see here the adding, go to the palettes, then widgets. You can see here the different process or the different controls that you can use. Example, image button, image view. Since image view control, just simply select the image view control, just simply drag. Okay, then once you drag, and then you modify the settings. Take note, the image view control is still the associated path, or the file name will be the JPEG, PNG, GIF, okay, but not PSD because it's not yet converted with JPEG. Okay, so normally the image files associated with the image view. Okay, so that's how selections are selected in terms of the process. So here we include that. So the ID is img, so prefix of image is img. Then simply check the padding and check the focus. So that's how it looks like, the image view control. Okay, then automatically you could see that in your resources. So res means resources. You can see now the concert.png. Okay, so anything that you use in terms of the button, text width, and so on, so it's actually added here in resources, okay, under resources folder or res folder. Okay, then moving forward, now we proceed with the codes. Okay, so coding the edit text class for the text field. So of course we need to define first the variable, the final. So you know, already the variable, those are containing data that could call in return of your program. So naming convention, take note for creating a variable, naming convention, not ASCII characters. Okay, so you know that already, the variable naming. Okay, so on the second bullet we have the final. This final is actually a keywords in Java. So I do believe that you have familiarized with some basic of Java. So final is a variable can be initialized but cannot be changed. So meaning final in layman's term, this is a fixed value, or it's what we call the constant value. Okay, example, if you use final as example, final pi is equal to 3.14. So technically, the pi is 3.14. Okay, that includes 2 decimal places. For example, on 3.14. So 14, that's a final. So meaning, you cannot modify at all. So that's how it works. That's a term for constant. Okay, but with our case, the code syntax is final for the constant. Then the edit text is actually the name of our text. Then the tickets is our variables. Okay, so you need to declare the edit text, the name of the text, followed by the find view by ID. So the ID, meaning the name of the ID, followed by open close. R means the resources that the ID are executed. That the name of the text, which is text tickets. Okay, clear? So meaning all of those things are actually created a while ago based on its controls. All you have to do is to generate the particular process. So that's the syntax. Okay, again, just to repeat, the final is our keywords, meaning it's a fixed value. Then the edit text, the name of the text in the control, which is the edit text. The tickets is the variables, so equal to the edit text based on the name of the controls. Find view by ID means the methods to view a particular ID. Then R that ID that text tickets is actually open in the resources. So you could see that in your ID name, the text tickets. Okay, so meaning if you use that or period, automatically there's a suggested part. You don't have to worry if you forget those things, because there are a lot of suggested part that automatically generated in Android Studio. Okay, so actually that's a syntax. Okay, now let's proceed with the extractions. Okay, so the edit text class extracts the value from the user's input for the number of tickets and assign the value of the variable named tickets. Variables that the program has not used appear in gray or in gray text. This color is removed when a value is assigned later in the program. Again, okay, this color is removed when a value is assigned later in the program, meaning you can still modify those edit text based on the values. So as you can see here on the slides, by default, okay, it will generate it. So this is the syntax I am talking about. Here, the final. So here's the code syntax. So now I inserted that in line 16. I assign the edit text. So I assign the edit text as my input value. Right? Here. So actually, that's part of the syntax. It's fib. So don't worry about the package.net import. That's default. You don't need to overwrite those, or you don't need to edit those things. Just focus on declaring the different classes in the methods. Okay? That's on line 16. So next, we need to assign in slide 32 the code syntax for spinner control. So to take note, you need to know the syntax first prior to codes. Okay? That's very important. So we have here the final as our variable for spinner. So group. So spinner still find view by ID. So just like what we did here. Okay? Then followed by the ID. So as you can see, the same, but the interactions or the declaring controls is based on the group. See? It's based on the group. So here, that text group, since you select a group. So depending on the view of particular ID. So technically, after the line 17, after the line 16, right? Then now proceed with the line 17. Okay, so here 17, yeah, I added in 18 the final spinner as group. So I declared that. I assign. Take note, in declaring a program, you need to assign. Okay, so I assign the spinner group ID and so on. So just like in previous slides. Okay, next, I assign now the button. So still here, when you say instantiating the button control, the context, the code syntax here is final still. The text view. So here, spinner view, now the text view. The text view based on the ID. So the ID is text result. So technically, you have to add another line, which is the button. Okay, so initializing the button control using button, then the cost. The cost that has with a method of find view by ID, which is the button cost or BTN cost. As simple as that. Okay, so it will follow through. So take note, step by step. So if you know the first one, then it will follow through. As long as there is a controls that are associated with your program. Okay? So that's what we call instantiated button. Then moving forward, the button control is initialized, and on click listener, there's an auto-generated stub appears in code window. So automatically, this is what I'm talking about. It appear, as you can see, public void on click. Why? Because button is automatically override with the void on click. So meaning on click in terms of button, there's an action listener. When you say action listener, there's on click listener methods. In Java, there's different actions. On click listener, action listener, so cancel. So there's a lot of things that the button can interact with the method. Can be click, can be delete, can be clear, reset, and so on. So this example of on click, so automatically again, so we have a text result. Next, declaring variables. In declaring variables, take note, we have here the code syntax for declaring variables. So we have here the different data types. So when you say primitive data types, these are common data types, okay, that we can use in Java. So what are those? We have byte, short, int, long, float, double, char, boolean. So there's a meaning already stated here, the definitions and the range and the default value. So what we focus about is the syntax. So example, we use double simply because double is most common for decimal places. So example, 79.99. So rather than float, because float is a single precision of 32 bits. So meaning the stored capability is 32-bit, unlike double, times 2 with a float. So meaning you could add another value that associated with that. But here default is 0. So what we did is we created a value which is 79.99. Then int, when you say int, this is a most commonly used number. So meaning that's a whole number. So we declared number of tickets as int and double as our total cost. In Java, this is the syntax. Okay. Then in string data type, so by definition, the string data type is a class and not a primitive data type. Take note. A string can character a word of break. So meaning this is a series of characters. So the code syntax is string, then the name of the, take note, the name of the type ng class niya. So example, string group choice, but not a primitive type. Take note for that. Then declaring the variables, typically declare the beginning of array of an activity. So this is very common knowledge. So let's start with the syntax. So this one, as you can see, we have here the double, int, double, string. So these are the declaration of my variables. So I use that in a public class. Okay, the double, int, that's actually the declarations. We declared those things so that as we go through, we call those data types. Okay, so those are declaring variables of the activity. So now we're moving forward, the code syntax. We have number of tickets, so equal to integer that parse int. So integer, since that is the number, parse int means we're going to parse the integer based on the get value of the tickets. So that's the syntax. The number that could parse in a text within the string. Okay, so this is the method that you can use. You use get text method to read data stored in the edit control. So data is stored based on the string and parse. So this the types, this the numerical data types, integer, float, double. So this parse types is actually, you can see that once you code, there's a suggested part. As I told you, there's an Intellisense method that you can see. Okay, so these are actually by definitions. So all you have to do is to add, okay, the particular strings. So in line 30, so you have to add that. So assign value, convert value, and extract the text. Simple as that. Then moving forward, this is the mathematical operations. We have MDAS rule or PEMDAS rules, additions. So assigning statement, if you want to add, plus, minus, subtract, asterisk for multiplication, division for forward slash, and so on. Okay, so you know that already. But here in Java, in terms of the highest to lowest precedence value, so alam niyo yung parentheses from left to right, no? Yung plus plus and minus minus for incremented and decremented value. So depending on the order of operations. Okay? Formatting numbers, you can use a format using a current C, format. So that's actually the dollar sign. So if you want to make a PHP or peso, you can do that as long as the decimal places are formatted. So take note, the format is based on the hashtag. So example, hashtag, as you can see point here, this is the digits, numbers. This is actually the numbers. So the Android, you cannot see that in screen on Android, but you need to provide the format. Okay, that's the numbers, the sharp. So example of the syntax of decimal format currency, new decimal format, this one example is 799 or whatever values that, whole number, then separator, that's a format. Okay, then all you have to do is to add that codes in the decimal format currency. So this one, you have to add in calculating the text. Then in displaying the output, you need to make it a get selected item method for the label, since we have a group as part of the choice. This is a syntax. And if you have to set the method, this is a syntax, you need to load the result. Okay, so all of those things in Java, you need to interact in order for you to set a different method. Okay, so next. Now, you have to include that in line 36. Just simply copy those syntax and the format. Of course, don't forget the currency format. Okay, this is the summary. Assigning a theme of activity and their applications that prevent apps from looking too similar. So we also preview the theme. We also have the text fields, the string.xml, and also the property, the controls, and also we use the edit text. We also use a variable. We also assign the variables. We also have the methods to calculate. So that's it.